Hello everybody, welcome in. Janica, looks like you were ready and waiting today. I'm guessing a few people are excited to see this demo since we had some requests earlier in the week for it. Just gonna get my station set up here a little bit more, get kind of cleaned up and ready to go. Normally you guys will see me starting to prep my nails on my trainer hand, but today we are not going to be working on the trainer hand. I'm going to be showing you guys a fill on one of my poor little nails that is extremely grown out. So we are going to be working on that. We'll give everybody just a little bit of a chance to jump in here. Hopefully you guys get the notifications. Hopefully you got your notifications set so that you always know when we are going to go live. Let's see, it looks like we've got a few other people joining us. Mrs. Nosbig, Mushrooms Dania? Mushrooms Dania? Hopefully I pronounced that right. Faith, thank you so much. I am feeling better today. Still a little bit of a cough, but feeling a little bit better. Let's see, who else is with us? You guys, lots of great familiar names on our chat here. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Okay, before we actually get started, I want to know how many of you were with us on, I believe it was last week on Friday on our TikTok live stream where I showed how to do this nail. So let me know in the chat if you were in our live stream on Friday on TikTok. I would like to know, just so I can kind of see who's watching us, see who's with us. In the meantime, I will go ahead and get started here. Let's see here, a couple of other people in the chat here. I'm not seeing a whole lot of you that were in our TikTok live stream. So you guys make sure that you have your notifications set for both YouTube, make sure you have them set for TikTok. And if you guys haven't already, join our text community and maybe our moderators can get our phone number in the chat there. But if you guys text the word YN live, all one word, text us at our text number, and again, I'll hopefully our moderators are going to get that in the chat for you guys, just so I don't tell you the wrong number offhand here. But if you text us that word YN live, and we will send you a notification anytime we go live on any of our live streaming, so that way you can always join us with that. So make sure to text us, get all of those notifications, but let's go ahead and get started. Looks like a couple of you were with us last week, but not a whole lot. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be filling my nail here. This one that is, it's probably, I'm guessing about 3 to 3.5 weeks grown out at this point. We filled the other ones here on Monday. Well, we filled one on Monday. So this is the design that I'm going to show you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. And you guys, when I work on myself, I work at a lot of different angles. So you're going to see my hand move from this angle to this angle to this, to all kinds of different ways. I'm going to try to keep up with position on the camera here, but just go with it. Just go with it today. But we're always going to start by pushing back the cuticle, whether we're working on our trainer hands or we're working on a real person or we're working on ourselves for a client. We're always going to start by pushing back those cuticles. And you guys notice I didn't spend a whole ton of time here. I didn't sit here and try to get all of this cleaned up, all of that around there. I really didn't spend more than a few seconds on that nail, okay? That's all you really need to do, because you're going to go back in with your electric file and you're going to clean out the rest of that, kind of that white flaky tissue. If I come in really close, you can see there is a little bit of that kind of white flaky tissue around that cuticle area. All I was really trying to do though is push this part of my, I'm going to just call it the cuticle system, because there's lots of different terms that you can use, but I'm going to go with the cuticle system. So I really just pushed back this part right here to expose all of that dead kind of protein growth that's really stuck down onto that nail. We're going to come back and we're going to clean that up. But the purpose of pushing back that cuticle, technically the eponychium, but by pushing that back, it's really exposing all of that. So now we can come back in and we can clean that up with the electric file, okay? Now you guys, I'm gonna show you something really quick here. Do you see there's a little bit of kind of discoloration right through here? This nail has kind of been used and abused a little bit. I did hit this with my file, so I probably was filing another nail and somehow accidentally hit it like that. That's how that got stained, because it broke through my stain resistant top coat, and I'm not sure if it's probably not hair color because I haven't had my hair colored in quite a while, but maybe discoloration from contact with my clothing. I actually got a new pair of jeans the other day, so sometimes clothing can stain your nails. So that's one reason that I really like to use the stain resistant top coat, so that you don't get those kind of staining and those weird little marks on your nails. So just in case you guys saw that and you were wondering, that's what that is. There's just a little bit of a stain on my nail. I'm not going to worry about that though, because we are going to file that off. And that's really just in the top coat of my nail. It's not all the way through. So I'm going to start by grabbing my dust collector. I'm going to get that set right here in front of me. And we'll turn that on to all the way up, but I'm going to change out my bit here. I'm going to grab my safety bit Coarse. And we're going to start with the safety bit Coarse. And if you guys can take a look here, the safety bit Coarse is a coarse bit. It's a carbide bit. It is almost the same as our X-Cut bit. The only difference is that the X-Cut has the flat top and the safety bit has that rounded top. When I'm working on myself, I tend to like to use that safety bit because it's a little bit easier for me. I could use the X-Cut, but you guys, sometimes as I'm working on myself, I don't always have the exact balance and the proper balance that I would normally have on a real client. So that's why I do go with the safety bit Coarse, just to give myself a little bit more security, knowing that I'm not going to bump my cuticles or anything with that bit, okay? So we'll turn on our dust collector here. We got that cranked up all the way up to 10. Not sure if you guys see that flashing on there or not. It doesn't normally flash. But the camera picks it up like that. So we've got that cranked all the way up to 10. We're going to turn our electric file to, I would say, anywhere about 13 to 15,000 RPMs. And all we're going to do is we're just going to come in, and I'm just going to start to kind of remove that surface shine. Now again, you guys, you saw where that little bit of staining was. You're going to see that as I file, that staining is going to come off, okay? So we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to file this product all the way down. All I'm trying to do is just lightly remove that surface shine from my product. Kind of take down a little bit of that surface. And what this is going to do, it's going to allow me to start to see if I have any lifted areas, which I do a little bit. You guys, again, these nails are grown out way longer than they should be. So I've got just a tiny little bit of a lifted area right here. And if I look on the other side here and kind of turn that around, maybe just a hairline of a lift right around that edge there, but not a whole lot where I'm going to worry too much about it. I am going to clean that up, and I'll show you guys here in just a second. But I just want to show you that when you are filling your nails, that's all you really have to do. And we're going to, again, take down that lifting, but you don't have to go through and file down the whole entire nail back here. You don't have to file all the way through that free edge. You can see I'm only filing about halfway through that nail. I'm not filing that shine all the way down to that free edge because I'm not filling product all the way down there. Now, if I were changing out my design and say changing this nail to something like this, then I would probably actually clip off that free edge and file down as much of that product in the back as possible. But because all we're doing is just filling in this regrowth area, I don't need to take down a lot of bulk, because if I take down a lot of that bulk, all I'm going to do is have to refill it. So I'm going to use more product with that. So that's why I'm just taking down that surface shine, and then we'll come through, and let me get a good camera view for you guys here. We're just going to kind of feather away that lifted product. Now, as I'm working and I'm taking down that lifted product, let me show you this really quick. I'm not actually using my bit all the way over. Yeah, there we go. So I'm not using my bit all the way up and over that lifted area. I'm going to keep the end of my bit behind that lifted product, okay? And I think this is something that people, they don't quite understand when they're trying to remove lifting. I think a lot of times people try to just file over that surface of the lifting, and what that can actually do is that can actually make that product lift even more. So what you want to do, you want to keep your bit positioned behind where that product is lifted. So it's really just going to thin out that product right through here, and it's going to make that lifted product flake off, okay? So again, let me grab my e-file here. So I'm gonna just kind of feather through, and again, I'm keeping my bit behind that lifting. I'm not up over that surface. So just kind of feathering through, and then eventually you're gonna start to see this product just kind of flake off, just like it did right there. So that little lifted section just kind of flaked right off. Again, just kind of feathering, and there we go. So the rest of that lifted area just kind of flaked off. Now there's a tiny, tiny little bit right through here. I'm not gonna be super concerned about that. I am gonna go back through with my sanding band and remove all of that, kind of that hairline. Same thing on the other side here. I'm just going to, let's see if I can get a different angle. Again, you guys, working on yourself is very challenging because you're trying to get the proper angles and you don't always get exactly the right angle that you would normally get when you're working on a real client. So again, just kind of feathering through right behind that nail. See if I can get a better angle from this view. A little bit better. And you guys notice that I'm not just kind of grinding away in one spot the whole time. I do kind of move my bit all the way through. So from all the way up here, all the way back through here, I'm feathering that bit, feathering through. So that way, again, I'm not gonna cause any heat or damage to my nail, okay? Again, you guys, oh, there we go. That little bit kind of started to flake off right there. Just kind of feathering a little bit more behind there. Start to loosen up and release that lifted area. Somebody's asking in the chat, what are we doing today? You guys, today I am showing you how to fill one of my gel nails, and then we're gonna be doing a beautiful oil slick look on our nail. So that's what we got today. All right, we've got that lifted product removed. We've got our product prepped in the back here. I'm gonna switch my bit now to my sanding band. And you guys, this is the sanding band that I used on Monday for this nail. So it's not worn down. If you've already used that sanding band for a full set on a person, throw that away, okay? Get rid of that bit, take that bit off, get rid of that. These sanding bands are not sanitizable and disinfectable, and they do wear down. So you can see the difference between my newer bit and a bit that's been used and worn down. You guys, these are the same grit to start with, but you can see on the darker one over here, this one's just been used and that grit's been kind of sloughed off a little bit, okay? So always grab a brand new bit when you're working on either yourself or your clients. Always grab a new bit, okay? I'm gonna grab my E-file again. I'm gonna turn my speed down now to about 5,000 RPMs. And what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna come through. We've already kind of prepped the surface of that product. We're gonna come through and we're gonna prep that natural nail and then give a little bit of texture to that, that surface. Okay, so we're just gonna come right up around our cuticle area. So I'm coming up around that sidewall, up through that cuticle area. And you know what, you guys, I am gonna grab a brand new bit because I feel like I have used this one and I kind of took off, I think last time I showed you guys how to remove that sharp edge from the bit. So just kind of tap that sharp edge there. But this one I think got worn down a little bit too much. So I'm not getting a good kind of grip right around that edge. So I am going to change this bit out. Always have a good amount of grit to your bits so that they will do the proper work. If I didn't prep this properly, or say if maybe I used a fine bit, a fine sanding band, that's going to be too smooth and it's not going to have enough grit on that nail to kind of grab onto your product. So I'm going to just put a brand new safety or a sanding band. Sorry, I had to stop what I'm thinking. All right, so again, let's come up around that cuticle area. Okay, this one I feel like has a little bit better grit to it because it is brand new. It's not worn down. That bit is going to do the work that it needs to do and really kind of get up around that cuticle area. So now we've cleaned out all of that extra protein growth. Okay, you can see our cuticle area is nice and cleaned out. I am going to go through and again just kind of feathering my bit right through that area that we removed the lifting. Let me come back out just a little so you can see. So again, just kind of feathering that bit through that lifted area just to make sure it's nice and refined and I don't have any more of that lifted product around the edge. Same kind of thing over here. Let me see if I can turn my finger. Just kind of feathering through just really making sure that that product is blended down into that natural nail. And you guys, it's really important when you are filling your nails to make sure that you aren't leaving any lifted product on that nail, because what can happen is if you do have a little bit of lift, moisture is going to get down in there, and that's how you're going to end up getting those greenies or those bacterial infections, okay? So make sure that you get that cleaned up, make sure that you get that nail nice and prepped, no lifting, no separation, and now I've just started to kind of blend that product into my nail, okay? Now, one other thing I'm going to do, and actually before I get to that, I'm going to show you guys one more time. I haven't prepped all the way down the surface of that whole entire nail. I don't need to because I'm not putting product there. I'm really going to be just filling in from that cuticle area through maybe about here. So that's why I prepped just a little bit farther down that nail so that my product is going to adhere. Any product that comes up over here is really going to get filed off anyways, so we're not going to worry about that. So if there were people questioning why I'm only prepping part of the nail, that's why. I don't need to prep down all the way to that free edge, okay? All right, I am going to switch my bits one more time because especially when working on real people or even somebody who may be a nail biter, I love to use my diamond cuticle square bit. And this bit is a great tool to clean up around that cuticle area. So this one, I'm just going to gently come right up around there because you guys can see there's still just a tiny little bit of that protein growth up around my cuticle. So this one is going to get right up into that cuticle area, get those last little bits of cuticle. And I'm not really a fan of trimming cuticles because I feel like the more you cut your cuticles, the more they're going to come back as thicker, almost scar tissue. So I use my bits to just kind of slough off any of that dead protein growth, and I don't actually cut that cuticle. Now, maybe on my cuticles, if there is something that's kind of flapping back and forth like I have a hangnail, then I might do that. I might clip that off, but I probably will wait until the end of my fill. That way, any filing that I do, it's not going to irritate any areas that I've cut, okay? So again, I don't necessarily love to trim cuticles. I don't think it's always necessary. But if you do have that hangnail kind of flapping back and forth, then you can trim that when you're all done with your service, okay? All right, so we've got our nail prepped. It is cleaned up here. Let me grab my brush. I'm going to dust off all of that dust. And you guys notice that when I brush on my nail here, let's come back out one more time. I brush in an up and down motion rather than across the nail. Brushing across is only going to push dust down into those sidewalls. So make sure that you're brushing all of that dust out of those sidewalls, getting that all nice and clean all down those little sidewalls. Now I do brush up because that kind of pushes that cuticle back, and it also helps to get out that dust from underneath that cuticle area, okay? So brushing in this direction is really going to help to clean up that nail well. All right. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to grab our swipe, and I'm going to pump a little bit of my swipe onto my manicure brush, and we're going to use that to cleanse the nail. So swipe is a cleanser. It is going to help remove any extra dust, any germs, any bacteria that might be on the nail, and it's going to give us a really nice, clean, dry surface for our product to adhere to, okay? At this point, you can see that natural nail is still fairly wet, so I want to make sure that I wait until it starts to look very dry. Somebody in the chat says those bristles look harsh. You guys, this is just a very soft manicure brush. This isn't anything that is coarse or going to damage. It's just kind of like a soft toothbrush, you guys. It's just going to clean the nail. It's not metal. It's not anything that's going to damage. So not to worry. It's just a nice, easy brush. And you guys, again, I'm doing this on myself. So if I were doing something that was uncomfortable or painful, I wouldn't want to do that on myself. So I'm showing you guys, this is actually what I do on real clients. This is how I actually would do a nail on another person. So just so you can see, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't, feel too rough or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to give this just a little bit longer. You can kind of see still there's a little bit of moisture still right down along those sides. Now, if it's taking a long time to kind of dry out, I had quite a bit of swipe on my brush. I can use one of my lint-free wipes and just come through and really just make sure that that's nice and dry. But again, you have to make sure that your nail is nice and dry before we go into our bonder. If we put our bonder on when that swipe is still wet on the nail, it's basically going to null and void the protein bond. And we want to make sure that our protein bond goes on nice and sticky, okay? Protein bond goes in place of a primer. So we don't really use a primer on our nail, we use a bonder. And this bonder is going to work like a double-sided tape. So it's going to stick down to that natural nail, but then it's going to leave a sticky surface for our product to grab onto. Okay, you can see I'm really just putting that right around that natural nail. I don't need to put that onto the rest of my product. If it gets on the rest of my product, it's fine. It's not going to do any damage or anything like that. It's just that you don't necessarily need to. Sometimes you will see me just kind of blend through just because I have maybe a little bit left in my brush, but you don't have to. I am going to go through and do a second coat though, really making sure that I get as close to my cuticle as possible without touching. And you guys, you can kind of see that when I start with my brush right in the center and I kind of push it back towards my cuticle. That way I'm not starting right at that cuticle area and flooding that product into the cuticle. Okay, if you do flood that product in there, remember what I said, it's kind of like a double-sided tape. So wherever you get your protein bond, that's where your product is going to want to grab onto. So if I did get my protein bond up here onto the cuticle, that's where my product is going to have more of a tendency to grab onto. And we don't want that. We don't want our product touching the cuticle. We want a nice clean application and just a tiny little bit of space of that natural nail showing and product just on the nail, not on the skin. Okay? All right, we have got our nail prepped. It is ready to go. I know it looks kind of crazy right now, but we are going to add some product and then we are going to make it look fancy. So I'm going to start with, let me show you guys actually what I'm going to be using for our nail today. Today we're going to be using our concealer blush gel, and this is what I've got on the rest of my, just kind of my nude nails here. And you guys, this is a really pretty, just a soft nude color, but it has a little bit of a pink or kind of a glitter to it. So I'm going to just squeeze a little bit of this out here just so you guys can really see what this looks like. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of that, just that soft shimmer to that gel, okay? Now you could use just the regular concealer the concealer pink or peach if you don't want that glitter, but that's what I've already got on my nails with that little bit of sparkle in it, so that's what I'm going to be using to fill my nail in. Now, before we go into our sculptor, into our concealer blush gel, we're going to start with our concealer pink base, okay? You always want to start with your base gel. The base is what's going to give your nail the best adhesion. So the base gel is designed with more resins to it so that it is really going to bond to that natural nail. Now again, you guys, all I'm really trying to do is fill in that cuticle area, that regrowth area. So I don't need a ton of the base. I just kind of take a little bit of a scoop, kind of wipe off a little bit of that into my jar, and I'm just going to use that to brush right into that kind of that empty space. So just brushing a nice thin layer. This doesn't have to go on thick. It's again just to give adhesion, okay? So we're gonna brush that all the way through. And like I said, you guys, I'm only going about halfway down the nail. I'm not brushing all the way down to the end. We don't need any more product on the end, so that's why we're just working up into that regrowth area, okay? Now, I'm going to get my nail into the light here. Let me see if I can get you guys a good angle. There we go. So I've got my timer set for 30 seconds. So I'm going to keep my nail in the light for a full 30 seconds. Now, all of our gels are going to cure fully in 60 seconds, but with each layer, I'm going to just freeze it into place for that 30. When I do my next coat, this is going to continue to cure with that next coat. So it's going to cure fully all the way through. All right, let me come down here again. So we've got our base gel on there. It is cured. And then I'm going to use my, again, this is the concealer blush. Now you guys, you could use it if you don't feel comfortable using the precision applicator tubes. You could squeeze it out onto a tile and you could use it right from there and apply to the nail. So you know what, since I've got this, I'm just going to show you guys how to do that. So I just kind of scooped up that little bit. Let me come in a little closer here so you guys can really see. Okay, so I'm gonna take this off my nail and I'm gonna show you again what I was kind of doing there. So let's just squeeze out a little bit more. So if you weren't comfortable using from the tubes, I know a lot of times you guys request to see the products used from the jars rather than the tubes, because I do, you guys, I really do like the precision applicator tubes. I feel like they're a lot easier to use, especially if you're a beginner. But if all you have is the jar of gel, not jar of jelly, but jar of gel, you can take a little scoop of that gel, and I'm going to kind of just press that down onto my nail. Give it just a little bit of a press so that it kind of releases from my brush. I'm going to push that product back up to that cuticle area. And you guys, I want you to notice something. I want you to notice the angle that I'm holding my finger. I'm actually holding my finger at a downward angle rather than just flat like this. If I had it flat, my product is going to start to run down into my sidewalls down here and also back down into my cuticle area. By angling that finger down, you can actually see that that product is just kind of flowing right where I need it to flow. And it's really going to kind of form its own shape that we're trying to create. But I'm just going to kind of tuck this into my sides. I'm actually using, see how I'm using my finger over here to kind of push that skin away? I want to make sure that my product is not touching my skin, and then I'm going to kind of pivot my brush on the side to bring that right down the side. Now, I did see a little tiny bit where I did accidentally touch that sidewall. I'm just going to use my orange wood stick to clean that out. And you guys really make sure if you accidentally touch that skin, make sure that you do clean that out right away. Okay, you don't want to be curing that product onto your skin. You want to make sure that it's got a really nice tight seal down onto that nail. Okay, again, I'm just going to kind of push some of that product all the way down to my side here. Make sure that has enough product anywhere I need it. And just kind of touching that product and kind of grabbing almost a string of it to kind of flow that into those areas that I need. And again, I dinged my side here, so let me just clean that off real quick. So I don't have any product on my skin, on my cuticle area. I could feather that back if I need a little bit more product in that arch area, or I could just leave that as it is, because you guys, we are going to do a little bit of filing on this, but not a ton, okay? At this point, I am going to get this into the light, and this time, oops, let me set my timer different here. All right, so this time I am, sorry guys, you're just seeing the light there. I'm going to get this into the light for a full 60 seconds. So remember when I said with our base gel, this one went in for a quick 30-second freeze. Now with this next coat, we're going to fully cure it all the way. So that's why we need to put this in for a full 60 seconds, okay? And you guys, those of you that have been using our new blinged out lights, I hope you are loving them because I absolutely love them. Couple of great things to note about the lights is that they have several different timers. You've got a 15-second, a 30-second, a 60-second, and a 90-second timer. If you are using the 90-second timer, that one does have a low, kind of a low power to it. So what that means is that if maybe you are a little bit more sensitive to the heat that you can feel with your gel curing, that 90-second timer actually starts out at a low, kind of a low heat or a low light, and then it'll gradually increase to that full cure. So you can use that, that 90-second timer if you feel like you're going to have a little bit more heat. If you apply your product a little on the thicker side, I would definitely recommend using that lower heat mode, because that way your product is going to cure a little bit slower and you're not necessarily going to feel that heat spike, okay? So hopefully that makes sense to you. Let me know in the chat if it does, because I hope that it's one of those things that really can help if you are doing especially full sets, okay? All right, you guys, so our nail is cured out fully. Our product is good to go, but we do have a tacky surface now, because once that product cures, it does have a slight stickiness to it. So we're going to come back to our swipe, so that same product that we used to cleanse that nail to begin with. This time I am going to pump a little bit of that onto my wipe, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to cleanse off that tacky surface. Now you guys, this is something that it's kind of one of those odd little things to note, but as I'm cleaning off that product, I don't just scrub that wipe back and forth. I actually put that wipe on the nail, pull that wipe forward, fold that in half, and then give that nail another wipe. The reason for this is because that tacky surface on your nail, that's uncured gel. And we have to make sure that, again, we're keeping that off of our skin. So when I take that wipe, I place it on the nail, I pull that forward so I'm not just pushing that uncured gel back up onto my skin. Fold that wipe over, give that nail one more wipe just to really make sure that that nail is nice and clean. And again, there's no uncured gel that's going to touch my skin. Okay? All right, let's get to our filing. And you guys, when you're doing a fill, there really shouldn't be a ton of filing. You can kind of see I've already got my preliminary shape because that's the shape that my nails started out with. And if you look from the side view also, you can see all I did was fill in that cuticle area and kind of bring my product right up into that arch. So I've got a nice smooth transition here, so I don't have a whole lot of product to be filing off. But we're still going to go in with our electric file, clean this up, and then we will perfect our nail. Now, in the meantime, you guys, I'm changing out my bit here, but if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That really just helps our channel here so that we can offer you guys all of this great free education, and we can offer it more often. So the more of you guys that subscribe, the more education we can bring you. All right, I'm going to turn my dust collector back on. I switched back to my safety bit here. And we're going to turn our speed up to, I'm going to say about 14 to 16,000 RPMs. And I'm just going to start by working right up around my cuticle area. So I'm just coming around that cuticle area. And again, you guys, the view that you're seeing is exactly what I'm seeing as I'm doing my own nail here. So just kind of coming around, thinning out and tapering out that cuticle area. Now I'm going to look from the side view. Again, this is exactly what you guys are seeing is exactly what I'm seeing. So I'm going to look from the side view, and I'm just going to bring my bit from the center down to the side. I'm not trying to come all the way across that nail. The reason for that, so again, I'm just starting in the center, coming down the side. I'm not trying to come all the way across, because from this view, I can't see where my bit is hitting. And if I come down too far, I'm actually going to catch my skin on the side here, and that could potentially cause my bit to wrap around my finger, okay? So I'm just staying right in the center, down the side, just bringing in my arch, just kind of filing in to see what shape I want my arch, so I've got a nice smooth transition, okay? And you guys notice that as I file, I start at that cuticle area with my bit at just a slight downward angle. Then when I come into that stress area, I'm bringing my bit a little bit more flat. And then when I come down into that free edge, I bring my bit at a slight upward angle. That's how you're going to get that nice contour, that nice arch to the nail, and it's just going to flow, okay? Now, how do we get the sides here and the sides over here? We're just going to turn the finger. I'm going to look straight down the barrel of the nail, and I'm just going to use the top part of my bit down there on the left side, just kind of pulling forward. I'm going to use the base of my bit on the right side and pull forward, okay? Now, when I'm working with my e-file, you guys, I'm basically making contact with that bit and pulling. I'm not trying to put a lot of pressure. I'm not trying to really put pressure with that at all. I'm basically just making contact and moving, okay? Making contact and moving, contact and moving, contact and moving. And now I'm just going to kind of flow all the way from the left side, all the way up, all the way over, back down to my right side to get that really nice taper all the way through. So nice and contoured, nice and smooth all the way through, nice flowing kind of curve all the way through, okay? Now, I do have a little bit more product down here on this side. I'm going to kind of clean that up. Notice how I'm using my ring finger here. I'm using that ring finger to really pull that skin back, so this way I'm not coming in contact with my skin, okay? And remember how we only prepped about halfway down the nail? That's because at this point, I'm really filing all the way through, so I didn't need to prep any farther down here, okay? All right, you guys, I see somebody say in the chat, it takes forever. You guys, normally if I'm working on either myself or a client and I'm not trying to teach at the same time, it does go a lot faster. But because I am teaching, I'm trying to show you guys all of the different techniques and things that are gonna make your life doing nails much easier. So that's why it is taking a little bit longer, but I promise you guys, on a real person, it definitely isn't gonna take this kind of time, okay? All right, I did switch back to my sanding band. So when I'm doing around the cuticle area with, let me show you this here really quick, with my safety bit, oops, because it's got that rounded top to it, I can't get all the way down into that cuticle area without kind of bumping into my skin. So especially if I'm using that safety bit, I always like to switch back to my sanding band. We're gonna turn our speed down to now about, I would say about 6,000 to 7,000 RPMs. And now I can use the sanding band to get right up around that cuticle area and get that really nice and flush all the way down to that natural nail, so that I don't have a ledge or anything that I'm either gonna pick at or that's gonna catch or lift or separate. So this is how we really refine these nails, by using that sanding band all the way around there. And then I'm gonna go through kind of those same motions that I did with my safety bit, just to really help refine everything a little bit more. So the more I can file with my electric file, the less I'm gonna have to do by hand, and it's gonna be much easier for me, okay? Especially working on myself. So when I'm working on myself, I definitely would rather use my e-file as much as I can, rather than trying to file everything by hand, okay? You guys see that little tiny little bit of gel that kind of slid down off of that nail? I'm just gonna come in with my sanding band just gently right up into that corner there and kind of clean that up. Now there's still a little bit to clean up, but I will get that with my hand file, but just a quick little easy way of kind of cleaning up those ledges, okay? All right, I think we are good. I think everything is tapered right around my cuticle area, down along those sides really well. I don't feel any ledges or anything there. So I'm going to turn off my e-file and we'll grab our hand file. And this is how I'm going to finish and refine this nail, okay? So you guys, I have a brand new file. And when you have a brand new file, you always want to make sure that you take off the sharp edges of it. So I have a prep file, and this is really just a file that I don't use 100 grit files very often, and I had a bunch of extras, so I have labeled this one as my prep file. All I use this file for is for taking off sharp edges. So this isn't something that I'm going to use on a real client or on a hand. I'm just going to use this for taking off sharp edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my file, the 150 grit that I'm going to use. I'm going to hold that with my prep file on top. I'm going to just glide over the top part of that, flat over the top. So if you can kind of see, I'm going flat over the top, and then I just very slightly angle that, and I get the edge, okay? So you guys can see right along that edge right through there, that's all that I'm filing. I'm not trying to file all the way down onto here, because if you file all the way down there, that's gonna take off the grit that you need to use to actually file your nail. But we wanna get just this little edge here, so just a slight angle that way, taking off that sharp edge there. Same thing on the other side, slight angle, just taking off that edge, okay? So making sure that I've come through through those three edges, and then I'm gonna use my own hand and check. Just kind of running my fingers across the top of that file to make sure that I've taken off that sharp edge. Same thing on this side, we're gonna go through flat across that top, angle just slightly, catch that edge, angle slightly on the other side, catch that other edge. Now I know that my file is nice and safe, and I'm not going to cut my skin or cut my client's skin when I work on my sides, okay? We're going to start on the sidewalls here, and I'm just going to come in and straighten those out. Do you guys see how nice and straight up and down my file is? I'm not angling my file back into that corner. If I were to angle that file, that's going to start to cut into my natural nail, and I don't want to do that, okay? So we're going to come straight along that side. And I may even turn. So sometimes I hold my file. Let me come back out here, you guys. Well, I guess that's as far as I can go. So sometimes I hold my file in my hand like this, so just kind of between my fingers, supporting with my thumb. Other times I will hold it still that same way, but I'll turn my file around and come from this direction, okay? Just kind of depends on what's comfortable for you. Again, when you're working on yourself, it's kind of tricky to work from different angles. So you may have to adjust how you hold your file. You may have to adjust the position you hold your hand in. But just kind of coming through, straightening out those sides. I'm going to kind of taper in my free edge just a little bit more here. I think it kind of got rounded out as my weeks went by. So I'm going to bring that a little bit more to a point. And I'm not going to worry too much about perfecting that pointed shape at this time, but we will be getting to that in just a little bit. So in the meantime, I'm going to check my lower arches. So what I mean by lower arches is this product that's coming out from that nail. I want to make sure that's coming out nice and straight from that lower arch. Same thing on the other side. You guys, look what I did. I actually filed a little too much on that edge, but I think we're going to be okay because I'm going to file right in there and it's going to take that little corner off. So I think we're good on that, okay? All right, we're just going to come right through that cuticle area and down around those sides, tapering in those sides, making sure everything is nice and contoured, nice and smooth around those edges, nice and rounded around those edges. And then I'm just going to kind of float my file all the way through the rest of the length of that nail. I'm going to come back out here just a little bit so you can see. So again, just kind of floating that file all the way through that nail, making sure everything is nice and smooth. And then I'm going to turn my hand around. So I'm going to look at my hand. You guys, I always look at my nails from this direction. So that's how I want to make sure my nail is straight. That's why I said I wasn't going to spend too much time straightening out that nail from here, because I want to make sure it's straight here, okay? All right, just going to kind of taper in a little bit more there. And I'm going to look down the barrel of my nail now. And again, you guys, this is kind of a tricky way to hold your finger here, but I am using my thumb to support underneath so that when I file, I've got even pressure from the top, and then I'm putting pressure underneath, because if I don't put pressure underneath, if I don't support that finger under there, my finger is going to kind of wobble a little bit as I file. So by putting pressure with my thumb underneath, it's going to hold and steady my finger so that I can file through that nail and get that nice and smooth, okay? All right, you guys, one more time, make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, join our community, stay up with all of this free education that we're giving you. And join our community. We love to see you guys. We love to have you here for our classes and for our demos. So make sure you subscribe, set your notifications, and come back and join us every time. All right, so at this point, I'm just kind of perfecting, kind of looking at my nail from all different angles, making sure if I see any high spots, any low spots, I'm going to go through and file those out. And I think we are looking pretty good. So I think we are ready for our design. One last little trick here, you guys, that I'm showing you is when you look from the free edge, you want to make sure that your lower arches are even from side to side and one isn't hanging lower than the other. So by placing my file right up underneath there, I can really make sure that those are nice and straight and even. Okay, so just one quick little trick there to help you out. Okay. All right, I think we are good. Let me turn my dust collector off. And I am going to dust off my nails here, dust off my hands a little bit. So again, dusting in the direction of the nail growth so that I get all of that dust out of those sides, out of that cuticle area, even underneath. kind of make sure that you dust out underneath if you need to get all of that out, okay? We're gonna go back to our swipe, same cleanser that we've been using since the start. I'm gonna take a little bit of that on my manicure brush, dust that nail off and cleanse that nail. Okay, get that nail nice and clean. And this is also a time where you can really check that nail. So now that we've got all of that dust cleaned off, you can see that nail, that structure, that shaping, everything is looking where it should be, and we are good to go. Okay, if you did still see anything that maybe you needed to touch up or adjust, go ahead and do that. Make your nails as nice as you can, but give it just one more quick little dust, again, just to make sure it's nice and clean. All right, just like we did before, we're going to use our protein bond. Protein bond is also going to help to keep our gel polish or our top coat on without chipping. Same thing, I'm going to start a little ways away from that cuticle area and then kind of work up to that cuticle area and then pull away. That way, again, we're not going to be flooding that product into our cuticle and touching the skin, okay? All right, now you guys, we are going to be doing this oil slick design, but what we're going to start with is a coat of our black gel polish. So this is our Manicure color, and this is Black 101. And I absolutely love this color because it is so rich. It's a really good black. Let me come in here, make sure I'm in camera. It's a really good black. It's very pigmented. So if you need to do 2 coats, you could, but with this design, I generally will only do 1 coat. This way, I'm going to still keep my application nice and thin. But again, because this product is so pigmented, we can really get good coverage with just 1 coat, okay? Now, if I were just going to be doing a black nail, like a solid black gel polish, then I would definitely do 2 coats. But for this design, we're going to put glitter over the top of it, and that glitter is going to cover up any maybe little bit of sheer areas that we have, okay? But just really quick, you guys, I want to show you kind of how I work up into that cuticle area because I know it's kind of a challenge. So what I do is I actually press my brush down. Do you kind of see how those bristles kind of fan out? And then I push that up to the cuticle. Now again, with any product, you want to make sure that you're getting as close as you can to that cuticle without touching. So once I get that product up there, then I just pull that brush down the length of the nail, okay? All right, I'm going to check my sides here, make sure that the edges are capped with my black, make sure that free edge is capped. It's just a personal preference. You don't have to, but it's a personal preference. I like to see color around the sides rather than having those kind of empty around the sides. Okay, we've got our color on. We're going to go back into the light. I'm going to change my settings here one more time. Let me make sure. Okay, so I've got my settings now turned to 30 seconds. Whoops, what's happening here? Hold on. There we go. Okay, so I've got my setting on for 30 seconds. We're going to do just a 30-second freeze on this nail. Okay, again, we're not going to completely cure it all the way through. We don't need to because it is going to fully cure with our next coat. And I'm going to grab my glitters here that I'm going to use. And today we've got a whole bunch of glitters. We've got 2, 4, 6, we've got 7 different colors that we're going to use. So first one is Sunshine. All right, so we got our 30 seconds cured. So we've got Sunshine, which is a super bright yellow. Now you guys, I want you to take a look. I have this color on this nail, but because we have that black background, it really kind of changes how the color looks. So don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by these colors. We're still going to get that oil slick look, but we are going to be using these bright looking colors, okay? Next one we've got is called Crush. That is our bright orange. We've got Purple, obviously a purple. We've got Pinky, one of my all-time favorites. We've got Punk Rock, so Punk Rock, softer kind of a blue with a little bit of a gold tint to it. We've got Fuchsia, and we've also got Royal blue. And yes, somebody's saying I'm bringing back the old school lids. You guys, yes, some of these have the old school packaging still. Here's the thing, you guys, glitter lasts forever. There's not really a shelf life to it. So I've had some of these glitters. I stocked up a long time ago on some of my favorite glitters. And actually all of these are kind of our original glitters. So yes, these are old packaging. Actually, these are really old packaging, but glitter is fine. The shelf life, it's not gonna go bad. So don't worry about that. So if you have glitters that have been around for a while, you can still use them. Okay, we have our black on this nail. It's cured enough. It's cured only for 30 seconds, but it does have that tacky surface on it. So we're gonna put our glitters into our tacky surface. And we're doing what's called a glitter press, okay? So whatever colors you want to add, I've just got a little makeup brush here, you guys. It's not anything fancy, just kind of an eyeshadow brush. And it also has a little kind of a chiseled brush on the other end. This is what I like to use when I'm doing my glitter presses, but really, you guys, just a regular old eyeshadow brush is going to work just fine. So all I'm doing is just touching the glitter in the jar. And then actually, I don't want to get that back into the jars, so I'm going to move that there. So just kind of touching that onto the nail, touching that into the jar, and then you can just kind of wipe out your brush, kind of just clean out your brush, get some of that extra glitter off of there, and just kind of keep going through and adding that glitter right into any of those empty spaces, kind of blending those together however you want your design to come out, okay? Now I'm going to take a look at this nail. I want to make sure that I do have glitter everywhere, and it looks like I do. I'm just going to kind of go through, press that glitter down into that nail, and then I'm just going to dust that off. Okay, and you guys, this is where I like to have that little chiseled brush. Again, you don't have to, but I feel like it works really well for cleaning that glitter out from those edges so that you don't have any glitter kind of hanging out down on those sidewalls. Now, another trick that I like to do is I'm going to grab my my stamper, and actually I think this is clean, but I want to make sure. So I am going to grab my stamper cleaning tool and really just make sure this is nice and clean. So I'm just going to clean that off really quick. But then you can use that stamper to really make sure that your glitters are pressed down. Okay, this way I don't have to use my finger or anything like that, but just use that stamping tool to press those glitters down into that tacky surface so that now everything is going to be nice and smooth. Let me come in a little closer so you can see there. So everything is really nice and smooth after using that stamper to press those glitters down into that tacky surface. Okay, I am going to do one more freeze. So I'm going to put this back into the light, I would say maybe for 15 seconds at least, up to 30 seconds or however long. If you're working on a client, maybe you could be working on the other hand and do that. But really just to kind of allow that tacky surface to grip onto those glitters. And I find that if you do cure it for just that 15 to 30 seconds, your glitter isn't going to smudge when you do your top coat, okay? If you don't do this step, it's going to be still okay, but you may end up with more glitter in your top coat brush. Okay, so just a quick little hint there to make things a little bit easier for you. Now, those of you that have been with us for a while, you know what time it is. So let's go ahead and start our top coat chant in the chat. If you are new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But when we do our top coat, when we get to that point, that's when we do our little top coat chant, because it gets us all excited that we're finishing this nail and we're going to be able to see that beautiful shiny look on there. So let's go ahead and do our top coat chant. Now here's the thing. I did say that we're going to do a top coat, and we are going to do a top coat, but you could also use a base coat for one of these coats. So we're actually going to apply 2 coats of top coat to seal this in. We're going to do 1 coat to really seal that glitter, and then we're going to do a 2nd coat to give us a nice smooth finish. If you have bigger, chunkier kind of glitters, you may want to use the base coat first and then your top coat on top of that. The base coat has a little bit of a thicker consistency, so it's going to really encase those glitters a little bit easier. Now, with this design, because we are layering a few different things on here, I want to keep this as thin as possible. So that's why I'm going to use the manicure top coat. And again, we are using very small glitters, so nothing too large and like confettis or anything like that. So I am going to use 2 coats of our manicure top coat because I feel like this is our thinnest top coat. And this is still going to allow us to seal in those glitters, but then not get too thick of a finish. Okay, so just a nice thin even coat. Again, just that first coat to seal those glitters in, and then we'll do our second coat of top coat to really refine and give us a nice smooth finish. Okay, one more time back into the light, again for another 30-second freeze or so, and then we will do our top coat. Now you guys, while this nail is in the light, I am going to start to put the caps back onto my glitters. It makes me nervous. Oh, I just knocked over my top coat. But it makes me very nervous having glitters open like this because I do tend to knock things over. So I always try to make sure to close things up as I work so that way I don't spill any products or anything like that. Okay. All right, so we have our first coat on there, cured out 30 seconds. We're going to do our second coat of top coat, just enough to seal this whole nail so that we don't have any of that texture from our glitter coming through anymore, and we'll have a nice, smooth, shiny finish here. Okay. All right. Again, capping my edges, making sure everything's nice and sealed around those edges. I am going to change my timer on my light. So that's going to, again, go, whoops, let me change that back really quick. There we go. So that's going to go back in there for a full 60-second cure. Now, normally when I do my demos, you guys, you all know that I just put the top coat in there for about 30 seconds to freeze it into place so that you guys can see the final look and you don't have to wait for that whole minute. But because we are using our manicure top coat, I do want to fully cure this out so that you guys can see how to finish with that manicure top coat. So the manicure top coat is a gel polish top coat, and it does have a tacky surface. So we need to cleanse off that tacky surface. So now that I've got all of my glitters put away here, normally and throughout our whole service, we've been using our swipe to cleanse off that tacky surface or cleanse off the nail to make sure that there's no germs and things. We're actually going to put our swipe aside, and we are going to grab, I can't reach it just yet. Give me a few more seconds. There we go. But we are going to grab now our, let me get this in here, our manicure cleanser, okay? Difference between manicure cleanser and swipe. Swipe does have a little bit of acetone to it. So if you are trying to use this to cleanse off the tacky surface from a gel polish, a soft gel, that little bit of acetone that's in there can actually start to kind of dull down the surface of your finish. So you want to make sure that anytime you're using any of our manicure top coats or anything like that, you want to make sure that you're using the manicure cleanse, which does not have any acetone to it. This is going to give you that really nice high gloss shine, and it's not going to dull down that finish. Okay, so we're going to pump a little bit of that onto our wipe, and just like we did before, we're going to set that wipe on there, pull forward. I'm going to fold my wipe in half and cleanse that one more time. Okay, now we're going to take a look. Sometimes when you work with the glitters, you may end up getting a little bit of texture along those sides. And I can feel just a tiny little bit of texture under there. So I'm going to grab one of my, this is our 180 file buffer combo. And you can use either that file side to come right underneath there if you need to. Kind of reshape that if you need to. And then switch over to that buffer side. Or you could just start with the buffer side, just enough to kind of clean up around underneath. And you guys, again, I'm kind of coming from underneath. I'm not filing all the way up around those edges. I don't want to take the shine off the edge, but just enough to clean up that little bit of kind of texture that you may feel with those glitters in there. Okay. All right, you guys, I am going to finish our fill here. I finally have a whole hand completed. I guess I got to do my other hand over the weekend maybe, but I am going to finish my fill here with a little bit of our rose oil. And this is going to help to, you guys can see how dry my skin is after all of that cleansing and wiping and everything. I'm going to really make sure to hydrate my cuticles, hydrate that product, and really keep everything nice and hydrated and flexible, okay? And you guys, making sure that you and your clients are using the rose oil throughout the time between their fills. I always say as often as you can use it, the better. You know, the more you can use it, the better. At least a couple of times a day is how much you should be using your cuticle oil to keep your nails, keep your cuticles hydrated, keep those nails flexible, and it's going to help to keep your nails adhered really well so that you don't have a lot of lifting or things like that. That extra moisture in your natural nails underneath is also going to help. So always make sure that you're finishing your services with the rose oil. Keep using that in between your fills, and we've got our full set done. Well, we've got one hand of our full set done. All right, you guys, one more time, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that we can keep bringing you guys all of this great free education. And I think we are good for the day. Today is Wednesday, so we should be back again on our live stream again tomorrow. Make sure that if you haven't already, get those notifications. Text us at our texting number. Moderators, maybe if you can get that into the chat one more time. I believe it's 714-274-7323. Text us the word YN Live, and we will send you notifications when we do go live on any of our live streams. And I think Greg might be doing a live stream over on TikTok later this afternoon. Don't quote me on that. I think so, but make sure to join him on that as well. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day today, and we will see you guys back next time. Thanks, everyone.